You're choosing what to eat for dinner. Simple. Now you're choosing what to eat for dinner, but the restaurant closes in 3 minutes, your phone is dying, and someone's waiting for your answer. Same decision, different process. By the end of this, you'll understand why pressure doesn't just speed decisions up, it changes how the brain decides. Most decisions feel straightforward until pressure gets added, and when it does, something shifts. People don't just decide faster, they decide through an entirely different system. So, what actually changes when a decision becomes urgent? This video explains the mechanism that takes over when time, risk, or consequences enter the room. Pressure activates 3 changes in how decisions get made. First, attention narrows. Under pressure, the mind stops scanning broadly. It stops weighing every option. Instead, it locks onto whatever's immediately available, the closest choice, the most obvious path, the familiar option. This isn't carelessness, it's efficiency. The brain is filtering aggressively because scanning takes time, and time is suddenly expensive. You stop looking for the best answer. You start looking for a sufficient answer. This is why decisions under pressure feel limited, not because options disappeared, but because the mechanism narrowed which ones get considered. That's narrowing, and you felt it any time a decision suddenly felt smaller than it should have. Second, the future compresses. When urgency rises, consequences that happen later fade into background noise. What dominates instead is what happens now, today, this hour, the next 10 minutes. The brain treats urgency as a signal that immediate outcomes matter more than distant ones. A mistake today feels heavier than a mistake 6 months from now. A benefit now feels more real than a benefit later. This isn't short-sightedness, it's recalibration. The decision is still rational, it's just operating on a different timeline. You're not ignoring the future, you're discounting it. That's why urgent decisions feel heavy now, even when they'll matter later. Third, thinking becomes automatic. Under pressure, the analytical system shuts down. What takes over is pattern recognition, defaults. Whatever you've done before in situations that felt similar. Familiar choices require less mental effort than unfamiliar ones. And when pressure is high, effort is a cost the brain tries to minimize. This is why people repeat behaviors under stress, not because they're stuck, but because repetition is faster than deliberation. The mode shifts from exploratory to automatic, from what's possible to what's worked before. That's why stress doesn't create new behavior, it repeats old ones. 3 mechanisms: narrowing, time compression, automatic response. That's the system pressure activates. This mechanism runs constantly in modern life. At work, tight deadlines don't just speed decisions up, they change which decisions get made. The proven approach wins over the experimental one. The familiar vendor gets chosen over the unknown alternative. Not because people lack creativity, but because pressure makes novelty feel riskier. With money, urgency distorts evaluation. A financial decision made under time pressure, an investment closing, an unexpected expense, a limited offer, pulls focus toward immediate relief rather than long-term value. The question becomes, what stops the pressure? Instead of, what's optimal? In relationships, stress triggers defaults. Arguments under pressure often replay old patterns. Conversations that need nuance get flattened into familiar responses, not because people can't think clearly, but because pressure narrows the range of behaviors that feel accessible in the moment. And in daily life, the pace itself creates the conditions: notifications, overlapping deadlines, decisions stacking on decisions. The environment is structured to keep this mechanism engaged. What feels urgent isn't always important. What feels risky isn't always dangerous. What feels automatic isn't always right. But the mechanism doesn't know that. It just responds to the signal. Pressure is present, shift modes. Understanding this doesn't make you immune to it, but it does give you distance, the ability to notice when the system has switched, when urgency is real and when it's manufactured, when narrowing is helping and when it's limiting. Pressure doesn't reveal who you are, it activates a specific decision-making process, and recognizing that process is different from being controlled by it. Is the urgency coming from the situation or from the system that just switched on?